Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. And before we get to the JRC, a little brief disclaimer. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links will be right there in the description box for you, so should you like to deep dive on either subject, you're definitely going to be able to do so. Trigger warnings real quick. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. A, I use profanity. I use a lot of profanity. And B, when we discuss places like the Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape's boarding school for boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. So, if you got a child that is 16 and younger and they are watching this, parental supervision, very much advised, alright? Alright, so where we left off yesterday, on to the next comment. This one states, I support a ban on electrical stimulation devices for self-injurious or aggressive behavior. As a licensed independent clinical social worker, therapist, and parent. So that means they actually have clinical expertise. So somewhat similar to the case managers that I worked with at the state, with some extra credentials as well as being a therapist and a parent. Nice stack there. And way to do that without making it into an essay. You don't need to list every single one of your credentials just because you got letters behind your name for people on both sides. This person was able to show why their opinion was relevant with a single sentence. It can really be that easy. Sorry, I just felt the need to say it. I cannot condone the use of traumatic intervention. When the United Nations Special Rapporteur declares that the use of electric shock as a human rights violation under the UN Convention Against Torture back in 2013. Think how long ago that was, guys. 2013. This should be reason enough to ban its use. Therapeutic environments and interventions should not be creating more trauma. Thank you! We are already predisposed towards trauma because we are being brought up in a world that is not made for people like us. So even with good intentions, there's going to be some trauma involved until we figure out all the kinks in the overall treatment without destroying the human being in the process. The last thing we need to do is you know what would be good? Let's bring back corporal punishment for behaviors our kids have no control over. That'll be great, right? There are more efficacious and humane interventions to support individuals struggling with self-injurious and aggressive behaviors that, by the way, work. Otherwise, all these people would be busting down the JRC stores. Does anybody see that happening? No? Yeah. Cutting edge my ass. Sorry, not sorry. Banning ESDs is a critical step towards upholding human rights and promoting ethical, educational, and therapeutic practices that allow individuals to thrive without fear of harm. Exactly. And folks, when you don't have to live in fear every single second of your life, can you imagine it? Your performance at school improves. Now, I know that sounds like a crazy idea, but students not constantly worried and stressed out all the time, especially being stressed out about regards of potential harm, tend to be able to better concentrate their efforts on focusing on schoolwork. Crazy, right? Who would have thunk? Alright, let's go back down to where we were, folks. Alright, here's our next comment here. Now, This is a combination of template as used by the Autism Self-Advocacy Network with additional personal things thrown in. So we're going to go ahead and read it. It says, I support a ban of electrical stimulation devices intended for self-injurious behavior or aggressive behavior. For decades, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have been tortured by these devices at the Judge Rotenberg Center. It is the only place in the country that still uses this barbaric and inhumane practice, despite substantial evidence that shocks are painful and traumatizing to residents. Alternative behavioral supports exist and are proven to be more effective. Please support this ban. It saddens me that this barbarism exists. Saddens, embarrasses, infuriates, fills me with absolute, unadulterated, special level of murderous rage towards the individuals who are teaching my brothers and sisters to fear the world. I mean, granted, you should. But, like, certain ages should be able to be free from that kind of knowledge, at least for a little while. We really are kids for such a small amount of time. We need to try to make childhood the least amount traumatic it possibly can be, even if the child in question happens to have a disability. I don't care. Do not intentionally harm them. Let them be kids. Yes, even let us be our authentic autistic kitty selves. Okay? It shouldn't be that difficult. Alright, we're going to go ahead and continue here. We're actually going to finish the rest of page 10 here before we close out today. I know that makes this video short, but will be another one along here directly. Alright, we got another essay. To whom it may concern, I am writing to support the Food and Drug Administration proposal to ban electrical stimulation devices intended for self-injurious behavior or aggressive behavior. Does any of that include standing up for longer than 3 seconds? Is the JRC well aware of the fact that sometimes you have to stand up for longer than 3 seconds if you happen to have a wedgie you need to pull out of your butt? Because I had to do that on occasion when I was in school. How about you? But I would have shocked within an inch of my life for that. And would it have been justified? Because, well, you've got a label. How about we just start labeling everyone so everybody knows what it feels like? I, along with colleagues in the disability community, have long advocated that these practices are trauma-inducing and torturous practices which must be abolished. I supported the ban on ESDs that the FDA sought in 2020 and was disappointed when the decision was vacated by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Court, D.C. Circuit, on July 6, 2021. Thankfully, in response to a wave of advocacy on this important issue, Congress took directive action to update the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, giving the FDA full authority to ban the use of ESDs. Act on it. Give them no room to retreat. Do everything by the book if that's what it takes to get it to stick, because that's going to be the beginning. We can get that chink in their armor to stick this time, then we'll finally have a foothold to begin to get the whole ball rolling. So, thus there must be no question about the FDA's authority to take the current course of action and ban their use. I urge the FDA to act quickly to finalize this proposal so that children and adults with disabilities no longer must suffer painful and dangerous electric shocks. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Very well said. Alright, on to the last one. We'll close out for this video here. Famous last words, and no, we're not reading the additional materials. Alright, I'm going to try to read this straight through and not get triggered, but just know it's probably going to involve a whole lot of gaslighting us, victim blaming their own child, and not being able to see the situation clearly. Be prepared for that. And my cursing and triggering and ranting and raving. This one says, I want to start this letter by stating my family and I are against the FDA, again trying to ban electrical stimulation devices to treat severe self-injury and aggression because the treatment is safe and has saved the life of my son. Then why did it put Andre McCollins in the hospital for 2 months? If that device is safe, why, after being shocked over 31 times, was Andre McCollins in a hospital bed, catatonic, for 2 months? You see, that doesn't tend to happen when you are actually dealing with a treatment that actually is safe. They tend to not end with your kid inside in an ER with second and third degree burns all over his body. And if you don't believe me, inside the description box, like I told you, are a whole lot of things. We also have Autistic Hoya's massive archive, and one of the things that they link is some of the photographs from that Andre McCollins incident that happened back in 2002 of those specific burns, along with the video surveillance footage of him screaming and begging for his life. Now tell me, does that sound safe and like something that's going to save someone's life? Because if my options is that or death, I choose death. If it's that or life in prison, I'm choosing life in prison. That's pretty much it, point blank. You cannot solve me hurting myself by you hurting me instead and thinking that it's a solution. Do you not understand or comprehend how batshit insane that sounds? Why do you people believe this? It's because you want to believe it. It's because you were never actually guided through the service system properly. No one gave you proper resources. And then JRC came along and they promised you the quick fix. But the problem is, when you signed on for that quick fix, you got the results you wanted, but you found out that in order to continue to get the results that you, not your child, but you want, you have to continue to keep them on the device that is hurting them. So, instead of doing a reassessment and taking a long, hard look in the mirror, you decide to choose denialism. You decided to run it as fast as you can away from your own guilt. You chose to believe in the delusion, the beautiful fantasy, the pretty lie. And then you are mad when not only not everybody else believes it, but that our people are willingly, literally, putting our lives into this fight. Our blood, our sweat, our tears, sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice to bring this horrible place to an end. And you are having a very visceral reaction to someone destroying the fantasy. Now, this is a phenomenon that I have looked into before. People who are so in love with their own delusions that they will react violently, vehemently, passionately against you for trying to destroy the illusion they have fallen in love with. Viscerally attack. And they'll keep doing so. That's why I call them the true believers, the Kool-Aid drinkers. But it's not just the JRC. You're going to see that in a lot of different areas. That's why I say a lot. We're literally still just the tip of the iceberg in studying how mental health impacts us all. And how something like that phenomenon I just explained can happen and affect real lives. If I were to confront this individual directly and put all the information before her, she's going to tell me that I'm wrong, ARC is wrong, the UN is wrong, the medical model is wrong, all these families, these advocates, these professionals, all of us are wrong. We're lying. We're just trying to bring down the JRC because, and I shit you not, I've seen this, because you all are jealous. See? I'm both appalled and morbidly fascinated on how the human mind can go there. Now, they're going to do the usual. We're going to just tap on it briefly. I don't want to get too triggered here. My son Stanley is severely autistic. He has lived with herself, husband, and daughter up until his teenager years, until her family and her could not care for him anymore due to his self-harm and aggressive behaviors. So, once again, we're blaming the survivor here. This is pretty common, and it's not just with JRC parents. I've seen it in your regular, average, everyday parents too. I've dealt with a whole lot of them in my office. In fact, what they have pulled before is saying all these same types of tropes, well, exalting myself and putting me on a pedestal as though I was a living miracle, when in actual fact, all I really did was follow the same path of the rest of my neurotypical peers. I got diagnosed late. My mom did not do anything special with me. I went to the doctors, I went to my therapy, I took my medication, I did my best to get as high a grade at school as humanly possible. And when I hit high school, because I'm a gigantic nerd, I apparently overdid it the first 2 years. That's how I ended up with a high school diploma and an associate's degree at the same time. Graphic arts, folks. Graphic arts was what it was in. But you get my point. They do this, though, as a way of justification as to why they had to go to the JRC. It's the only thing that works. You know what you're saying when you say that that's the only thing that works, parents? The same thing every abusive parent I have ever heard make apologies for their own behavior against their own kids say. Violence is the only thing they understand. The abusive parents are wrong, and so are you. And by the way, considering that that is the company I'm comparing you to, y'all really need to get somebody that can get you back into your senses so you can see things clearly. Now he's gone a large amount of psychotropic medications for the purpose of sedating him. It's the same tired crap, isn't it? We're reading it here. It follows the exact same formula that all the testimonies of the JRC do, without even seeing all the red flags that are popping up inside their own testimonies. That's what blows me away. A lot of the red flags I keep mentioning, I'm not getting it from the JRC opponents. I'm getting it from JRC supporters. Crazy, right? But anyways, I do think this is a good stopping point. I don't feel particular need to trigger myself when I already know the formula that this is going to take. But we noticed the trend in comparison to this is that a good bulk majority of the people who have commented on this are in favor of the ban. We're going to continue to 100 to show you just how true that is before we go ahead and move on. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and close out. We don't get very many views on this channel. And the few that we do get, do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. Make sure you're set up to receive notifications still, because tomorrow we're going to be doing the next Down the Rabbit Hole series episode, and on Sunday, of course, we're continuing on Varner's Snake Oil Salesman series, and I definitely don't want you to be missing anything. Folks, I do appreciate your time. As always, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you here in a little bit. Bye-bye, everyone.